I've been heavily contemplating on the energy I'm in, and I've had to really look within to try to figure out what the best course of action truly is. I really could decide to pursue formally filing a lawsuit in the physical against Kimmy and Jamie and their associates, but I've still been feeling like I don't quite resonate with that seeming appropriate just yet. I've been really trying to deeply reflect on why I'm still not getting any direct communication from Kimmy or Celine, despite what I feel should have been rather obvious as a clear need for better communication between us. I really don't know how Celine's been feeling recently, but I've recently personally suddenly been feeling an extremely intense attraction towards Celine. The attraction I feel towards Kimmy hasn't reduced at all, either, to be clear. I just now also feel a very similar attraction towards Celine as I always have towards Kimmy. I've normally felt like I should push away any intimate feelings or attraction I've felt towards Celine because I really haven't known how to feel about it if it's came up. But this time, it just feels different. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but I'm left feeling like I'm being kind of overly cold and mean towards Celine than seems truly appropriate to me at this point, and I want to change that. Trying my absolute hardest to think of any possible reason why Kimmy and Celine would still be so distant to me and feel that's appropriate. The only good reason I can imagine at all at this point for why they still don't want to directly communicate with me is that Kimmy feels confused and Celine feels hurt that I don't show more clear interest and eagerness in dating Celine and being intimate with her to basically a similar extent as I do towards Kimmy. Basically, I've been feeling left with a sense of it being the only really obvious or viable ultimate result of our connection that I end up dating both Kimmy and Celine at the same time while they're also dating each other and me at the same time. I want to take this opportunity to explicitly state that I've never meant to hurt either of them. I've never wanted nor been trying to break either of their hearts, and I'm sincerely hoping to alleviate any such effect I might have been unintentionally having up to this point. The truth is that I consider both Kimmy and Celine to be eternally, incomparably, perfectly voluptuous goddesses of my wildest fantasies, who are each incomparably, perfectly, utmost possibly, physically and otherwise attractive to me compared to anyone else I could ever even possibly fathom existing. I'm absolutely certain there's absolutely no possibility whatsoever of that ever really changing either. Nor do I at all want it to, or see any reason I'd ever want it to either. I feel so deeply attracted to both of them, physically and otherwise, that I truly don't feel words are enough to really accurately describe it. I don't feel like there's really any point in trying too hard to either. For a long time, I just assumed, basically for no real reason other than it just seemed like it was reasonable, I guess, that it just wouldn't be possible for me to have a truly healthy relationship unless it was just between me and Kimmy. Now, I feel like it just makes sense that it's just impossible for me to have a truly healthy relationship ever if I'm not dating both Kimmy and Celine at the same time forever. I mean, if they both want to contact me and are really serious about giving me a reason why I should accept just dating one of them and not both, I'm not trying to say I'd reject it and prefer to date neither, because ultimately, if I was given convincing enough reason, I suppose I'd be equally as happy dating either of them exclusively if that was truly the most reasonable and healthy arrangement for all of us. I might be crazy or wrong somehow, but I'm having extremely serious difficulty even imagining any world where any of us are truly better off not just dating each other at the same time forever. I feel like since I've been putting my soul into being with at least Kimmy this entire time, it's pretty hard for me to believe there's any situation where it really makes sense for me to just be dating Celine, since that feels like I'd be selling my soul or getting robbed of it to do so, and I've never wanted that. That's not meant to make Celine feel unattractive or undesirable at all, though it's just how things have ended up playing out in the grand scheme of things for one reason or another. I feel like it's really made sense to me for a very long time to stick to passionately just chasing Kimmy and pushing Celine away, because I feel like otherwise I would have just came off like a massive creep, like I'm some would-be fuckboy or something, with a huge ego, thinking I can just casually, boldly claim two extremely attractive celebrity women as if it should just be a given that I get to date them even without really putting in effort to get to know them better or get closer to them. I really feel like it would have just seriously creeped them out in a purely negative manner and pushed them away permanently, which I never wanted to do. Maybe that seems unusually insecure of me or something, given how confident I usually come off, but it's really been my thought process about it the entire time. It hasn't been malicious at all, nor indecisiveness or insecurity or anything I'd consider immature or egotistical. Literally just me trying to be sensitive and considerate towards both Kimmy and Celine. The way my connection with Kimmy started just made the whole dynamic different than I ever had with Celine. But I'm not shy or ashamed or insecure or indecisive or anything like that about how attracted I am to both of them. I don't feel like I ever really have been either. So if the explanation I'm giving of my perspective doesn't make sense to you, I really don't know what to tell you. I know the passion I've shown up to this point towards wanting intimacy with Kimmy perhaps would make it seem like I'd be heavily biased towards pursuing and embracing intimacy with Kimmy over Celine, but if they really both want to date me at the same time, I really want them both to know that's certainly not how things would be between us. I'd have no issue whatsoever with engaging or indulging in intimacy with both of them equally. They seem to be unable to really believe my feelings. Maybe they're just really struggling with insecurity. Or maybe they feel it deeply too, and I'm being kind of insecure and assuming they wouldn't. I don't know. I don't care so much for trying to point blame about it at this point either. I know that my feelings towards them come from the healthiest possible place. I really feel like we could really get along and really just elevate each other's lives wonderfully if we were communicating better and connecting better in the physical. I'm really trying to be sensitive and considerate here, but I really want to emphasize that it's not at all coming from a place of indecisiveness about how I feel and what I want. I'm also taking into consideration that I shouldn't need to behave super needy or desperate or somehow so exceedingly pathetically to the point it basically warrants them feeling like I must be unworthy of actually being with either of them, no matter how much they might wish I was worthy. Maybe they think if they just keep hurting me and being distant and making excuses to leave me in a state that feels like I'm being emotionally held hostage by their indecisiveness and lack of clarity in what they truly want from their connection with me, I'll eventually just decide it's not worth it to make sure I break out of that state properly and with dignity. Or maybe I'm being too harsh towards them and believing they're being unconditionally malicious about it. And they just really wanted things to reach a point that they're convinced I really mean everything and I'll really never move on either way. Well, regardless, I'm really never going to move on. So if they continue, they'll just be left increasingly frustrated and in more severe legal and spiritual issues themselves, as they see that I only continue to make it increasingly obvious I'm being completely sincere, and they can't try to hold the past over my head forever, as if I've been the one trying to deny them sexual intimacy with me, or trying to deny them some kind of meaningful, healthy, romantic connection in general, when clearly they're only increasingly going to be coming off like they're maliciously withholding communication and intimacy from me. There's really no amount of money or anything else that could ever truly feel like adequate compensation to me for being deprived of the kind of connection I want and feel I deserve with Kimmy and Celine. But that really wouldn't stop me from pursuing a formal lawsuit against them in the physical if it really ends up feeling like it makes sense to go there. I don't enjoy coming off threatening, but regret is a massive understatement for how miserable they will be if they really push me to a formal lawsuit in the physical. I seriously will never date anyone else. I'll seriously never move on. And how devastated and miserable I am because of being deprived of having them in my life how I prefer will forever be extremely evident to everyone. It would be one thing if I have to pick between one of them, or there's only one I really have to pick between dating or just walking away from this whole thing. But how things have been, I'm not even really being given a choice between them, nor having it made apparent if there's one I must decide to either date or just walk away from. I know it might seem arrogant to many that I'm seriously saying I believe I should be dating both Kimmy and Celine at the same time forever, where they basically should see being with me as a blessing. But I'm not so concerned about that. I've been ready for whatever drama anyone might want to bring me for basically just being who I am. If I have to pick between having both Kimmy and Celine at the same time or having neither, it's not even a decision. Both at the same time it is, always has been, and always would be. Given everything I've already exposed, I suppose I could be overly concerned about getting too close to Kimmy and Celine and possibly putting my life in danger, given how they've been involved in plots against me before. But at this point, I feel like that's a possibility with literally anyone at any time, basically. I don't feel like I should be particularly concerned, to be honest. It's not like dating them suddenly completely strips me of spiritual protection or destroys my discernment, and I'm certainly not going to be paranoid about that. If anything, maybe I should be careful with how I might possibly deal with Jessica, but I don't feel that will particularly be an issue. And so should Kimmy and Celine, anyways, especially now that I've exposed things more thoroughly. How I see things, I'm probably a lot more likely to ultimately be in even more danger if I'm cowardly in how I deal with Kimmy and Celine. I feel deeply hurt and left in the dark with Kimmy and Celine completely refusing to directly communicate with me in the physical. From my perspective, it's like they're enjoying neglecting me. It's not like I want it to be that way, but unless it was really just that I was coming off meaner than I intended towards Celine, then I really don't know how else to really take things at this point. There's really no point where I ever randomly snap somehow, where I pivot from my position and compromise my integrity. So, if they're seriously just completely unwilling to communicate properly with me and there's no really good reason for it, then there's really nothing that makes sense left other than a formal lawsuit in the physical. There's definitely going to come a point where if they prove they're really just never going to communicate with me properly, and clearly my life just remains in extreme danger and deprivation with no real answers or clarity, as I'm left just trying to make guesses about what's going on or something, then actually reaching out to attorneys seriously and extensively and seriously finding one to handle the case becomes the only real option that I see makes any real sense. I'm not a fraud, and I don't want anyone to be able to try to act like I shouldn't be taken seriously. Eventually, lack of action on it just makes me seem like a complete joke, which is definitely not what I've ever been going for. I'm really being patient and understanding and trying to look at things from their perspective, but I'm not going to endlessly keep trying to figure out why I'm not getting communication from them, as if it must be my fault somehow. I've clearly shown plenty of desire and willingness to self reflect and analyze the situation reasonably, and with plenty of patience and empathy towards both Kimmy and Celine at this point. If they seriously couldn't care less to at all really reciprocate that respect and decency, then there has to be a point I stop beating myself up and start realizing they simply have always just wanted me to self destruct, no matter how good my intentions have always been towards both of them. All it takes is one message. Kimmy and Celine have no good excuse to claim they thought I'm just trying to break their hearts or something like that. If I'm such a bad person like I've been made out to be, they just need to message me once, clearly, seriously, to find out for sure. If I mock them or act super arrogant and inconsiderate in my response or something like that, then they never have to really take me seriously again. But I know I won't behave like that, and they should know it too.